a video clip about to trade. Do you know what are the trade barriers? What type of the trade barriers are there? What the quota and what is technical barrier to trade agreement? If you don't know, we will tell you. Let's get started.
What are trade barriers?
Trade barriers are the barriers that are set by the government to limit free trade between national economies. So, trade barriers are essentially intervention in markets that happen to operate internationally. There is also the theory of comparative advantage that states as long as countries are able to access resources in different proportions, then they will all gain from engaging in trade with another. Each country only needs resources for the domestic manufacturing industry as efficiently as possible and then trade to meet domestic demand. In this respect, trade restriction between economics result. However, trade barriers are becoming common throughout the world because the government has a deterrent attitude toward their economy, while the country as a whole tends to profit from free trade. As more countries participate in the global economy, the competition in product is intensifying, leading to losses for some groups within the country. Wages in jobs in certain industries may be under pressure. Therefore, trade barriers are tariff and non-tariff barriers, which we will be specific about the next topic.
Types of barriers to trade. First, tariff barrier. What are tariff barriers?
The barriers are taxes that are imposed by each country to limit foreign trade. Usually, tariff barriers are imposed on both export and import for goods or services operated by that country. As a result, the same type of product that must be imported will be more expensive than domestic products. Thus, imported products from foreign countries cannot easily compete with the product in the country. Therefore, this can avoid consumers from buying imported products and turn to using the same product that are produced in the domestic country instead.
What are the types of tariff barrier?
There are two types of barriers: specific tariff and ad valorem tariff. First, a specific is a tax levied according to the unit and volume for imported goods. This tariff may be different depending on the type of imported goods. Second, ad valorem tariff is a tax levied on percentage of the value of the imported goods. Now look at some example of tariff barrier. Assuming that are only two countries can produce candy bar. Assuming that it is United States and Japan. Within United States, local candy bar currently sold at price of $2.5, while candy bar from Japan is only $2. So make people in the United States therefore buying more Japanese candy bar and local manufacturers strength, causing the United States government to decide to limit import of candy to promote local candy bar production. The government has a tariff of $1 for every confectionery imported in the United States because this increased traffic will make the price of the Japanese candy bar increase to $3, while the United States produce are still selling at $2.5, causing local candy bar to have cheaper price and attract consumers to buy more.
Non-tariff barrier.
A regulation of the government from different countries, it is set up to create a barrier to the export of trading partner countries or to discourage import that are consistent with international agreements. Generally found that countries to strict non-tariff measure until other countries see it as an unfair measure, which non-tariff measures are often used in conjunction with a tax or non-tariff measure because goods to be deprived of variety measure. It is therefore difficult to assess trade distortion. In addition, the implementation of measure is the discretion of the importing countries, which is sometimes arbitrary and discriminatory. This creates a risk to foreign manufacturers because the rules do not yet fully cover non-tariff measure. Each country is often reserved and bargaining powers with other countries. As a result, developing countries are unable to keep up with the change caused by. Did you know about the type of non-tariff barrier? If you don't know,
What are the type of non-tariff barrier?
There are 5 types of non-tariff import quota are the most widely used non-tariff barrier because they can control a certain quantity of goods. Therefore, it opens a better opportunity for competition than in the case of import taxation because the import tax, which can be divided into individual country quotas or total quota, and usually quota are used in conjunction with tariff, also known as tariff embargoes. Embargoes are prohibited from export or import goods of any kind or variety with a particular countries or international trade ban with a country are strictly. For example, if the US ban on import from Iraq prevent Iraq from exporting goods to the US, the trade embargo restricts consumer option from having the opportunity to experience other countries' goods. As a result, product manufacturers in that country cannot compete freely in the world trade arena are considered a type of quota, but the exporting country limits the amount of export goods themselves, not by the country's importer, but in fact, such export restrictions are unusual, mutually agreed upon by both parties. This allows the exporting country to limit its own export. Local content or determining use of local production components, including both labor and raw material, is one of the ways to prevent import and to force foreign manufacturers to invest in production in the countries. Countries instead of using product to import licensing is used in the case of giving an import. The importer must notify the relevant authority importation license of the country whether to issue an import license or not is the discretion of the authority in the importing country. Despite the provision to regulate the discretion of official, the state may still exercise such discretion to discourage import, of which this type of action is a deterrent that follow import quota to achieve greater inclusion. Quota setting country typically issue permit to importer until the quota. Example non-tariff barrier in the US. The United States has determined that export textile and leisure product and sold within the United States market, it must be labeled to show the name of the country origin of the textile. And next we will talk about the topic of quota.
Is trade restriction that the government has set up which limiting the number or monetary value of goods and services a country can import over a period of time. Which country use quotas in international trade to help control the amount of trade between the two sides, and sometimes different countries set quotas for specific products to reduce the number of import and increase domestic production. Therefore, quotas are considered to stimulate domestic production by limiting foreign competition. A quota can refer to a sales target that a company wants a salesperson or sales team to achieve for a specific product. Sales quotas are often monthly, quarterly, and yearly. Management can also
set sales quotas by region or business until different types of quota, but we will talk about import quota in the US. Let's take a look at the quota in the US. Import quotas of the US generally limit imports to a level below what would happen under free trade term. With the US import quota, there will be a quota regulatory agency at the US Customs and Border Protection Agency, which is the federal law enforcement agency of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, oversees international trade, regulation, customs collection, and the enforcement of U.S. trade regulation. Therefore, has examples of import quota that have been used by the U.S. as follows. 1. Condensed milk of Australia has a quota quantity that can be imported 91,625 kilograms per year. 2. Evaporated milk of Germany has a quota quantity that can be imported 9,997 kilograms per year. 3. Blue mold cheese of Chile has a quota quantity that can be imported 80,000 kilograms per year. Quota is also considered a use that could lead to a monopoly on domestic production and higher prices. This is because domestic companies realize that foreign manufacturers cannot exceed their import quota, so may increase the price. Tariffs do not necessarily lead to monopolies, as there is no limit on the amount of goods brought into the country. The next topic will be about the technical barrier to trade agreement, or called in short that TBT agreement. TBT agreement is the issuing of regulation in technical and standard, including packaging requirements, marking, labeling, and assessment procedures for conformity with technical regulation and standards must be fair to ensure that the technical regulation do not create unnecessary obstacles to trade. With the agreement on technical barrier to trade, encouraging member states to negotiate mutual acceptance of the result of the assessment. Although the technical regulations are different from their regulation, this will reduce costs and benefit trade, as well as encouraging member states to provide technical assistance in the formulation and enforcement of technical regulation and standard to developing countries. For example, agreement on technical barrier to trade of Thailand attaches great importance to complying with its obligation under the TBT agreement, both for informing and exchanging information on technical regulation and standards that may affect international trade. The Office of Standards will act as Thailand's central authority in providing information to the WTO, as well as answering inquiries on various matters. Whether it is technical regulation or TBT measure in relation to industrial products. In addition, the National Bureau of Agricultural Commodity and Food Standards will act as the central agency for agricultural products and food, the relevant agency. Both public and private must pay attention to this measure.